Amen. We honor Elder Pritchett, all the ministers. Amen. Amen. I'm just lifting up one verse, verse 27. We have it, say amen. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 27. It reads, I discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after all this, after I have brought the gospel to others, I will still be qualified to win the prize. Amen. Father in heaven, we come before you this morning. We thank you even now for another opportunity to just be in your presence. Right now, God, I ask that you would speak to the hearts and the minds of your believers. For you know what it is that they need to hear today. You know the areas that they need to be encouraged in. And so, God, we ask that you be the lifter of their heads today. Anoint me afresh for this assignment. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. 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 I want to preach from the topic, this will not disqualify me. Amen. This will not disqualify me. In the 1960s, a Stanford professor by the name of Walter Mitchell conducted a series of important psychological studies. And during his studies, hundreds of children were tested all around the age of ranges 4 and 5. This series of testing is believed to have revealed what is now one of the most important characteristics for success in work, life, and health. Professor Mitchell conducts the experiment known as the marshmallow experiment. This experiment starts off by bringing a child into a private room. He brings the child into the room and he sits them down at the table. And he places the marshmallow on the plate. And he says to them, you have a choice. You can eat the marshmallow now, or you can wait until I come back into the room. If you wait until I come back, I'll bring you another marshmallow. And so the instructions are really simple, really clear. You can either have one treat now or 2 treats later. And so as the years went by and the children grew up, the researchers conducted follow-up studies and tracked each child's progress in a number of areas. And what they found was surprising. The children who were willing to delay gratification and waited to receive the second marshmallow ended up having higher SAT scores, lower levels of substance abuse, lower likelihood of obesity, better responses to stress, better social skills as reported by their parents, and generally better scores in a range all across the board. Researchers followed these same children for more than 40 years. And time again, the group who waited patiently for the second marshmallow succeeded in whatever capacity they were measuring. And so in other words, this series of experiments proved that the ability to delay gratification was critical for success in life. Delayed gratification is a result of self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses. It is the ability to pursue what one thinks is right, despite the temptations to abandon it. The possession of self-discipline empowers you to choose and then persevere with action, thoughts, and behavior, which leads to improvement and success. It gives you the power and the inner determination to overcome addictions, procrastination, and laziness. It enables you to be a person that always follows through. And so what separates good athletes from great athletes is self-discipline.
Right.
Athletes, they eat different and they train different. They need a diet that can help them perform at their peak level and recover quickly. And all types of research and nutritional facts suggest what types of food athletes should consume as well as avoid. Amongst the list, there were carbohydrates. In moderation, the body changes carbs into glucose, a form of sugar that stores in your muscles, and it turns into glycogen. Now, when you work out, the body turns the glycogen into energy. And so protein was another amongst the list. Although protein doesn't give you energy, it's necessary to sustain muscle. And so as athletes have suggested foods to consume, they also have suggested foods that they ought to avoid. Sodas, alcohol, limit caffeine, limit sports drinks. They often said even to limit protein supplements because the protein bars were highly processed. And so out of all of this, when we look at our text, we get to Corinthians chapter 8. Paul admonishes the believers in the Corinthians church to abstain from certain foods. Now, he doesn't say it because of the sake of defilement. For we know Jesus said in Matthew 15 and 11 that it is not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him unclean. Right. It instead is what comes out. And so the apostle, he cautions instead the people of Corinth not to put a stumbling block in the way of the weak. The objection to partaking of it would be that to partake of it either in the temples or at the feast of their pagan neighbors would be to lend their countenance to idolatry. On the other hand, there were many who supposed that it was always lawful and that the scruples of their brethren was needless. Some of their arguments Paul alluded to in the course of the chapter. They were that an idol was nothing in the world, that there's but one God, and that everyone must know this, and that therefore there was no danger that any worshiper of the true God could be led into absurdities of idolatry. And so he warns the believers that they that have knowledge of this be mindful of the weaker saints. So Paul said, I know that it's okay to eat meat that has been sacrificed to idols because, in fact, we only serve the true and living God. Yeah. To you, the statue is an idol, but to me, the statue is nothing more than stone. So Paul suggested that there's no harm in eating foods because these are not the gods that we serve. But he said for the believers now that have not grown and matured in that area of their faith, he said so that you do not become a stumbling block to them. He said just abstain from eating it altogether. And so we got to be careful that our knowledge does not cause us to lead other people into bondage. And so Paul addresses this in chapter 8, and then it leads us further into chapter 9. In chapter 8, Paul mentions his willingness to deny himself, if it might mean that somebody else is benefiting from it. And so he talks about his willingness in chapter 8, but then when we get to chapter 9, we see the illustration of the willingness that he was talking about. And so the thing about an athlete is that one thing they do is athletes, they perform. And the thing about their performance is that it's often public. And so because athletes understand that their performance is on display, they deny themselves in private. They discipline themselves in private. They eat different in private. They train different in private. They live different in private. Why? Because they understand that what they do in private was going to manifest in public. And so when I used to play basketball, my coach would tell us that we had to practice hard because however we practiced is how we would play in the game. When we danced with Consider, we practiced and we rehearsed hard. And we understood that however we rehearsed in rehearsal, that's how we were going to minister on Sunday morning. And so we took rehearsals even seriously. Some rehearsals, the power of God would literally fall while we were rehearsing because we understood that what we denied ourselves of in private was going to manifest in public. Amen. And so Paul finds himself in chapter 9 having to defend his apostleship. They argue that he wasn't a real apostle because he had not seen Jesus. That he did not live like the other apostles did. That he was unmarried, as a solitary man and a wanderer, and was unlike other apostles in his mode of life, not indulging as other apostles might have done. They worked while other apostles got their finances, they were taken care of by the church. But Paul, he worked. Paul and Barnabas. And so the fact that he did not apply to Christians for his maintenance, that he did not urge this as a right, showed that He was conscious that he had no claims to the apostolic character and rank. And so Paul in chapter 9 ends up having to defend his apostleship. And he first responds by saying that he had in fact seen Jesus Christ. And that had qualified him for the office of an apostle. That he had the power like any other apostle to partake of the common enjoyments of life. And that his decision not was to prove that he was in fact an apostle. He just chose not to exercise those rights. He prohibited from entertaining marriage, even though he did not have to. He did not receive money from the church, even though he had just as right as any other apostle.
Yeah.
And so he did this because Paul said, I did it to promote the well-being of others. I denied myself the things that's due me as an apostle so that the church might benefit from it. And so what Paul was saying is that it is not that he simply preached. He says this thing was laid on me.
Oh, yeah.
What Paul was saying was that the call that I carry is such a great demand on my life that I can't help but to preach. And so he said, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because if I don't do it, I'm going to be miserable because this is what the Lord has called me to do. And so he sets the record straight. So Paul says, I'm not doing this because I'm in need. I'm doing this because even when I didn't ask for the call, Christ laid it on me anyway. So Paul said, I became all things to all men, that I might save some. So when you study verse 19, what Paul is saying, I enslaved myself to all kinds of people. When he was with the Jews, he became and acted in accordance to the Mosaic law. He was careful not to offend. He denied himself for their sake. Paul said, when I was amongst the lawless, meaning the Gentiles, who did not observe the law, he said, I became without law. He said, I neglected the ceremonial precepts of the Mosaic law when I was with the Gentiles. Because he, in fact, understood that he was no longer under the law, but that he was under grace. And so, how is it that many of us today, and I can attest, I was one of them, we get around unbelievers and we place demands on them. We say, don't cuss around me. Don't talk like that around me. Don't play that music. But Paul said, when I walked into the presence of the Gentiles, he said, I became like that. Now don't confuse it. I'm not saying that Paul went into their presence in sin. But what I am saying is he went into their presence without the self-righteous spirit. Because when we look at the Bible says Jesus went and he ate and sat amongst the sinners. And so the problem with us in the church is that we go amongst unbelievers, and before we can even get to know who they are, we place a demand on them that if they're going to be in my presence, this is how you ought to act. This is how you ought to conduct yourself. And so we can't even get to know nobody. We don't know why people are the way they are, who they are, where they came from, because we don't have a desire to hear who they are. All we have a desire to do is to be respected. Respect the God in me. That's what we say. Respect the God in me. I know I've been there. But Paul said, I enslaved myself that I might win somebody.
Amen.
And so, we have it confused. By the time we get to the 27th verse, Paul says, I discipline my body and I make it a slave. So that after all of this, after I have brought the gospel to others, I will still be qualified to win the prize. Here now, Paul compares himself to the racers and the combines of Isthmian games, well known by Corinth. And when he said, I discipline my body, what he was actually saying was, I batter my body. The Greek word for batter is hopiazo, which means to strike under the eye, hence I bruise. You ever seen a black eye? That's what Paul was saying that he does to his body daily. Paul was saying, I treat my body severely. I annoy my flesh. I harass my flesh. I worry my flesh. I exhaust my flesh. I treat my flesh with hardship. I bruise my flesh. I treat myself severely. That's what Paul was saying. That I batter my flesh daily. Why? Because after I denied myself for the sake of many others, I dare not allow myself to be disqualified. And so, Paul makes sure that he does not become a slave to his flesh. Sometimes we got to put our flesh under subjection.
That's right.
What Paul was saying is that I will not allow my flesh to disqualify me.
Amen.
I will not allow my flesh to have dominion over me.
Yeah.
I will not allow my flesh to enslave me again. I will not allow my flesh to rule over me. I will not allow my emotions to get the best of me. I will not allow my thoughts to overtake me. I will not allow my desires to disqualify me. So I'm going to bruise my flesh until it comes into alignment. I'm going to bruise my flesh until it comes under subjection. I'm going to bruise my flesh until it understands that I have dominion over it. Oh, no, we're not going to say it today.
That's right.
Oh, no. We ain't about to go over there today.
That's right.
I was about to send a text message, but I'm not going to send it today.
Right.
Oh, I'm not fitting to post that. Oh, no, we're not going to do this today. I was going to drag a few people, but we just not going to do that today. Why? Paul said, I got to bring my body under subjection that after I preach the gospel to many, I myself might not be disqualified.
Preach, Marsha.
So we're too busy being friends with our flesh. Flesh. I won't miss another season of acceleration because of my flesh. I won't miss another blessing because of my flesh. I won't release another generational curse because of my flesh. I will not stay in generational cycles because I will not bring my flesh under subjection. I won't stay stuck here all because I will not bruise my flesh. Paul said I beat my body daily. Until I give myself a black eye, you're going to submit.
Amen. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, oh, you going to submit.
Amen.
I don't feel like going to church. Oh, you going to go to church
You
today?
can go to church. Amen.
I don't feel like reading. Oh, you going to turn the TV
Amen.
on and you going to read.
Amen.
I don't feel like praying. Oh, you going to say something to the Lord today?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't feel like fasting. Oh, no, we ain't eating nothing today.
That's
Ain't nobody going to eat nothing today.
Amen.
I beat my body daily.
Amen.
Lord, bothered. Because anytime I preach, the Lord wakes me up. I can go to sleep at 12 o'clock, by 4 o'clock I'm up. And I'm grateful for that, but my issue with it is that, can I be transparent? I don't care, I'm going to tell y'all anyway. My issue is that it's not a consistent thing. Because I'm a mom, and because I'm a wife, and because I work, and because I'm home during the day with my children, and I work overnight, it's not a consistent thing. But I managed to find time when I got to preach.
Amen.
Why? Because this is public. So if I don't study in private, when I show up in public, God will know it.
Amen.
But this is what disqualifies us. When all you have is enough to deliver a word to somebody else, you already disqualified.
All right.
If all you have is enough word in you to preach to somebody else, but you didn't study for your own private time, you already disqualified. So if I'm not waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning any other day, I'm already in risk of being disqualified. If the only time I hear from the Lord is when I got to give you a word, I'm already disqualified. So Paul said, so I don't be disqualified, I'm going to beat my body daily. So you got to check yourself. You got to ask yourself.
That's it.
When there's those areas in my life where I know that my public performance is coming up. So I'm going to sow my seeds in private. But any other time, I'm not sowing those seeds in private. disqualified.
That's right.
If all you got is enough meat to give to somebody else, then you're going to starve at the end of the day. We can't. I can't come in here and just have enough strength for y'all.
That's right.
I got to go home. And when ain't nobody else looking, I got to beat my body under subjection.
Yes. Man.
I got to deny myself of some things. If all you have is enough for everybody else, but you don't have none for you, you're disqualified.
Amen. That's good.
If the only time you have is the time when you're sowing into somebody else, I said, God, why don't I study like this on a regular basis? I should have known about this 2 months ago just because it was Tuesday. When is the last time you poured out the commentary and just sat in you ain't have to preach nothing to nobody.
Amen.
When is the last time you identified with what's going on the inside of you and said, God, I got to get this thing right. So I'm not going to praise my way through. I'm going to study my way through.
Yeah.
Amen. That's good. That's good. Amen.
We disqualified. From the pulpit to the door. And I said, God, if you give me the grace and the strength.
Yes.
I'm not saying I got to get up at 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock every day of the week. But I need more than just when I got to study. Every time I've had to prepare a word, my husband knows he'll wake up and I've been up for hours in my word. But I'm tired of doing it for y'all.
Right.
But I do it because I understand that I'm a vessel. And that if I don't give the Holy Spirit anything to work with, y'all ain't going to have a word.
That's right.
Amen.
But what happens after I leave here and I've delivered the word to you? And my attacks show up.
All right.
See, the thing about athletes, when they performing in private, when they getting up 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning to go run, the team ain't running with them.
Right.
They running by themselves. The meals that they prepare to eat so that they can perform at a peak level, everybody ain't eating that. Self-discipline. That's what we lacking in the body of Christ.
Oh, that's good.
You say, oh, the church has lost its power. No, the church does not have discipline.
Right.
Wow.
The
That's good.
church shows up when we want to show up.
Preach more.
The church prays when we want to pray. The church fasts when we want to fast. There's no discipline in the house of God.
Oh, God.
That is the problem. Only when we want something.
My God.
Only when we have a public performance.
My God.
That is the problem with the body of Christ.
That's good.
If all you got is a public performance, but you have not been summoned in private, you already disqualified.
That's it. Amen. Amen.
And so myself first, I'm holding myself accountable.
That's it.
Like, Lord, we got to do better. You got to help me do better.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford to miss this next season.
That's right. That's it. Amen.
I can't afford to be distracted.
Amen.
And that's what I've been. Why? Because I've been in the Word for y'all, but I ain't been in the... So when my distraction, y'all don't have nothing to do with my distractions.
That's it. That's right. Amen.
Y'all don't have nothing to do with my warfare. But when they come, and I'm sitting in private, can't nobody help me. Because I didn't beat my own body under subjection.
That's good.
I don't get to watch TV, but I didn't turn off Super Wide and all them other little baby stuff that Imani watches so that I could get in the presence of the Lord.
Wow.
We got to figure it out.
Amen.
I don't care if you, I'm going to have to lose sleep, but it's okay.
Amen.
Because we lose sleep for what we want to lose sleep for.
Amen.
Let me tell you that it's a bus trip to New York and you're going to be at the 4:45 at the Walmart parking lot ready to get. We lose sleep for what we want to lose sleep for.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
We'll stay up all night to watch a series.
Amen. Yes. Come on. Tell it.
Disqualified. From the pulpit to the door. I done came too far. I done cried too many nights. I done gave up too much stuff. I done stopped Lord don't give mature words to an immature audience. So that lets me know that we are mature audience, that we can handle this right here. This ain't milk. This is meat.
That's it.
No more. Your flesh is not your friend.
That's the truth.
I don't care how much MAC you put on it. I don't care how much lip gloss you put on it.
That's it.
I don't care how much Vaseline and cocoa butter. Your flesh will disqualify you.
That's the truth.
And at the end of the day, you'll be standing before God saying, but didn't I preach it? Didn't I prosper? Didn't I go to the sick and the Lord said, depart from me. Because all you were in my hand was an instrument, but I never knew you. Don't think that God won't use you and you'll still be on your way to heaven. He'll use you and you'll still be on your way to heaven. I can't afford to just be an instrument.
Right.
When I know that He's given me access to be a daughter. I'm ready to inherit the kingdom down here in the earth realm. But I gotta carry enough word for me and you. If all I got is enough for me, I'm disqualified. And if all I got is enough for you, I'm disqualified. I gotta have enough for me and you. You gotta be in a position that when I need you, a word ought to be in your mouth. Why? Because you've been sowing in the word all week long. I got so much stuff to do with this. If you lost your zeal, I had a zeal when I first got saved. You remember on your lunch break you wouldn't eat, but you would just read your word? You weren't thinking nothing about a chicken nugget? There were nights where the Holy Spirit had to tell me to go to sleep because I would sit up all night and just be in my word. Why? Because I wanted to know who I was. I wanted to know what God said about me. I knew what the world said about me, but I needed to know who God said about me. So I invested. But after a while we stopped investing because we think we've arrived. We know two scriptures and we know how to break down the text and we think that we've arrived. We don't know how to shout real good. I used to do that too. Before I started shouting, I used to go home and practice because I wanted to dance so bad. I used to do it. Hey, the Spirit of the Lord said, come back to your first love. We got all this stuff that distracts us and we ain't even going nowhere. Just up on Netflix. Netflix and in bondage. Ain't no Netflix and chill. Netflix and bondage. Bam. Being entertained. All the while, the word of God is waiting. I can't afford to be this. I can't afford it. I can't afford to self-sabotage. And that's what we do. Can I tell you, you sabotage your own destiny? You sabotage your own marriage? You sabotage your own family, your own children? Because all you have is enough. I don't need just enough in this season. I need my cup to overflow. What's in my cup is for me. What flows out of it should be for everybody else. But if when you tip your cup, don't nothing come out. The time is late. I want to be a church where the Lord said, I ain't got no fault. I ain't got no error. The church is so who much is given? it's going to cost you.
Yes.
It's going to cost you. And what you do in private, it's going to manifest in public.
Amen.
Whatever you sow in private, God's going to uncover it in public. So I behoove you, you better line up in this season.
Yes.
Work on whatever you got to work on. Get right whatever you got to get right. But whether it be good or bad, it's going to manifest
Yes.
in public. They used to say, oh, your sin's going to find you out.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they will. Let me tell you what else is going to find you out. Procrastination,
Yes.
laziness,
Oh, yeah.
all of the time that you just chilled out, relaxing. Oh, it's going to tell what you doing. I done sat amongst people say, oh, they know with the Lord. You can just tell.
Right.
Saturated in the anointing.
Right.
I just need you to look at one person and say, this will not disqualify. You know what your this is. We all got a this. But I'll contend with it before I let it disqualify me. I'm going to extend the invitation to the altar. I promise y'all, after I pray for y'all, somebody gonna pray for me today. I'm gonna get what I need to, but the altar is open.